Welcome, nerd and nerdettes, to Dicecasters. I'm Robbie,
James.
Blake.
and today we're going to be talking about race. For D&D,
Right.
specifically, let's start with 3-5, and then we'll go 5, because those are the two types that we played. We haven't played 4, because nobody played 4, it was garbage.
No.
So, mechanically, what does race mean?
What race is that's another dividing line. We have our class, now we need to pick our race. So that more defines of what your character is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you physical attributes, and it's going to more or less kind of give you a guideline for what your character's disposition and his role in the world should be, in addition to what his role in the world would be from its class. So, like, you want to give an example of...
Let's go drow. Typically, a drow is either going to be, if it's a female, it's like 90% going to be a cleric. If it's a male, could be a wizard, could be a fighter, could be a rogue, could be all sorts of those roles. I mean, that's just one example.
Typically, they're also evil,
Yes.
just due to their very nature of being underground dwelling, demon spider worshipping sons of bitches.
Jam you, surface dwellers!
Yeah, so what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's cool to try to do race out of the normal, like a drow ranger that has a spider as a pet.
So against
sick on
type.
people.
I guess it's more playing against what I guess you would suspect, or I don't know. I haven't heard of that, even though that makes perfect sense.
I think it's cool. I mean, you're like a slave driver. You just sit there and spider after
Mhm.
them. But yeah, so mechanically, race is you have your stats, you have your size, you have this and that. You have your flavor, which is how does that work in with your class, like the drow and the priestess, like that's their whole deal.
Mhm.
That's why the cleric makes sense for that. But at the same time, personally, I like to try to do things that are more unique or different, like that example.
Like you can, I guess now we're talking about drows and playing against type. The only one that ever comes to mind is Drizzt Do'Urden, the only good drow that's also a chosen of a non-evil god, but he also might be the chosen of an evil god. They get real watery, especially in this latest.
I
novel.
fell out of it after spawning the world.
I'm still in. I shouldn't be.
I shouldn't be.
But yeah, and I guess that also Spawn of the World is also playing heavily on kind of a stereotype of the human barbarian and all these other things. But I think a thing that always has to kind of come with race is how that race will interact with other races throughout the realm. So with a drow, most of the time they are going to be very untrustworthy of people, and people are going to be very untrustworthy of them.
Yes. We've touched on types and we've touched on distypes. What does the favorite class mean?
Oh, okay. Favorite class is what that race of person would tend to be. So it's like we were saying, a female drow is born into a society where females are held in high regard and are generally promoted above males, so they are given the higher statue of being a cleric of Lolth, whereas the males are kind of left to fend for themselves, and they usually have to take up the role of a rogue, or I think sometimes wizards, depending on what it says. But basically...
Yeah, though it's favorite class wizard.
Favorite class wizard. So basically, in the flavor of it, it's why is this thing that, well, drow are naturally kind of in tune to magic, and they're in tune to divine magic if you're a female. But what it also equates to is in 3.5, it helps with multi-classing, because you're so naturally good at this. It's not counting against you with the multi-class point penalty that you would accrue from having too many classes.
So, what are a lot of different types with the favored class? A lot of different types of things that you can do. Because I know you like to make characters that have a ton of levels and everything.
Yeah. The main thing the thing I'll do is I'll pretty much use that as a completely metagame min-max tool.
Yeah.
I'll say like, okay, well I know that I should take a XP point penalty on here, so I'll tactically maneuver my fighter or whatever his favored class would be right there to make sure I can mitigate any kind of penalty I would have. And also I'll use that almost as a guideline as to like, well, he should kind of go in this general direction because it helps with the stats and all kinds of other bonuses that class or races will get. Like for instance, a human is his favorite class is any, and he gets an extra feat. So basically, the thing that they're trying to say, with that is that humans are very adaptable to any kind of role that they might need to facilitate, whereas a dwarf gets tons and tons of different kinds of bonuses, and he's small, he's in stature, he's very hardy, but he's not very, he's very gruff and very callous, so he doesn't have as much charisma, and I think they're relegated to being fighters.
Fighters, yes.
Fighters, yeah.
Favorite
So
fighters.
that also kind of points you like they should be the melee focus of the group if they're anything. But that also kind of gives you a thing to go, well, that's interesting. What would be kind of a polar opposite of the role he should play, like James was touching on?
Well, actually, just recently in 5 in the Unearthed Arcana, they're talking about the Forge domain for the cleric, which is like kind of a throwback to their deity of creation. And
Yeah,
they're all about like
playing it in.
Yeah, all about
Doom with Thoin.
whatever. And they're all about creating stuff, and I think
Many
that's a cool
deities
way
and
to
dwarves.
play against what's usual.
Yeah.
In like a unique and creative way.
Mhm.
Literally.
It's really fun to play against type. Bringing them up again because my favorite race is Warforged, and what I went out of my way to do, not intentionally, but what I ended up doing was playing against type. Warforged get armor check penalties, meaning they kind of need to stay away from being a mobile kind of climb the walls, tumble through this thing, be sneaky. I blew right through that. I took Mithril Body. He still took a -2 to everything, but my god, that dude can tumble up walls.
It didn't matter. -2? Nothing.
And it kind of, it's a fun way to, when you play against type, you get a whole new kind of feel for what the character actually is. Because, I mean, there's only so many times you can play the Elven Ranger,
Yes.
or the Gnome Wizard, or the Drow Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I don't necessarily care for the favorite class, so to speak, because like it makes sense, like thematically, but like you can't do that against type that easily, or it's like almost discouraged.
It
It
is.
feels like.
But that also encourages a player to experiment and like almost like challenge himself. Because I mean, there's one challenge you can do where it's like, how can I make this guy broken? And like that's when you're playing for numbers on the sheet versus how can I make an interesting character that's kind of out of nowhere, and that's when you start playing against type. And in a way, it doesn't mechanically benefit you, especially not in 3.5. But with inspiration dice being introduced in 5th edition, not only playing against type, but playing up that you're playing against type is really encouraged. So Exia is like my favorite character, and he's a Warforged, which is my favorite race. Just because, like, I've had Team Stranglehold, all
Yes.
Warforged,
Yes.
Panzer Tiger V. I've had Nodlay. I have Exia. I was trying to make another Warforged to be another continuity character for the far future, just to like have all this different interplay going on. I just find them just be a really fascinating kind of like anomaly, but they match so perfectly for what D&D is.
It's living constructs, man.
Yeah, like if I was a wizard, what would be the first thing I do? Like, I want to make an army of constructs, right? But I want to give them more autonomy than walk forward and smash. Give them a little bit of thought, and then it's like, okay, well now we're dealing with like basically a slave race and like all of the kind of different like ways you can play off of that.
Yeah.
So like that's why like to me like that's like my favorite favorite race. By the way, is we're talking about race, not talking about we're talking about races. So what's your favorite races?
I Honestly, I'm probably gonna have to go with. I've only played one Catfolk, but you know what? I had fun playing them. And that was the Sorcerer Ninja I made that Blake's Tiefling ended up murdering.
I love tieflings too, by the way. Tieflings are fucking
Tieflings
great.
are awesome. Yeah, Blake's character totally murdered my character. It was a pyre campaign. It was
his
to
fault.
happen. It was my own fault. Yeah,
All your fault.
it was all my fault. I'm fine with that. You know what? I accepted it. So
Man, it's hard for me to pick like my favorite race because I've played a different race every single time.
Maybe even
It seems
conceptually, like, even though I've only played one, I fucking
Yeah.
love Mind Flayers. They are fucking interesting motherfuckers. So, like, even conceptually, what would you think? Like, oh, these things are fucking rad.
Well, so I'd say yeah. Usually in most RPGs and stuff like that, I love to just play like a human or something similar to that
Mhm.
because it's a lot easier for me to envision myself as that character.
Right.
I think something I'd really like to play right now is like a lizard folk
yes,
because from what I read, they're like very, very neutral about the world. Like let's say that, like their brother, they're fighting with him. Their brother just dies. They don't like cry or anything. They're like, make a good meal later.
make
Like,
a good meal.
Stash that.
No, but for real though, the lizard folks' favorite class is druid. So
Yeah.
like that just fits their personality.
And
like,
it's so weird because
excellent.
I never see a wizard folk druid, but like
I know they're always fighter.
like, so perfect. Like I turn into a bigger alligator.
I'm
bigger.
bigger alligator. That's what I would do.
Or even like a druid drow,
Ooh,
giant spider.
Giant spider.
giant. I mean,
You're trying to imitate Wall.
Yeah.
yeah.
But don't do it
But
too much.
she,
Don't
but
piss her
yeah,
off.
she might get pissed at that.
Wolf's weird. Like that's tangent.
Chaotic evil, man.
Hashtag
Chaotic
tangent.
evil.
When you really break down what a chaotic god might want, chaotic god, I think in the end of the day will want chaos, right? So like I think as long as you are being a chaotic person, a chaotic race, like that should just that chaotic god should be like, that's cool.
It's cool.
Cool, bro. No.
You're starting shit, man.
So we kind of touched up on it earlier, but when you're playing a taboo race, so to speak, kind of like the Drow in main society, how do you feel like that should be handled in most games as far as racism versus public scrutiny?
Interactions.
Yeah, just interacting with the general public.
Well, I
Like
think
a good aligned Drow or a good aligned Tiefling trying to deal with like the world.
I feel like I do have the most experience being a DM in this role, especially because I've had to DM a drow that did have a good renown as being a good person, while simultaneously not being a good person.
Yeah.
Shooting a guy 47 times in the middle of the street because he was looking in a window is one of them.
I had to do it, man. He was begging for it.
Please shoot me.
The thing I always say is healthy skepticism is what most people should have, is what most NPCs should have. Not even just within that realm of there's a drow coming up to the city gates and the guard says they all instantly pull out their crossbows because they think this is the start of a drow invasion and they have to like assert that he is not that threat. In the way I went about making sure I had at least an out for how Robbie could get around having somebody who should by all means be shot on sight.
Yes.
I gave him a little badge that says, no, totally nice person.
Totally nice guy.
Little
Cool.
smiley face sticker.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
It was like a little...
I have diplomatic immunity.
Yeah. So people go, okay, I guess he has the proper paperwork. Guess he can't be all bad. But something else I've been playing, we're doing a campaign that's basically in the wild. It's in this outpost that's in the middle of like the harshest place on the world. And it's like I should have said, this is a xenophobic place. You can only be standard, very standard classes with very, very minor deviations. And the wildest deviation was Neo as an Elan. And yeah, so they were basically saying like you need to go out and be racist, and you need to kill orcs, you need to kill giants because they are not going to help this society.
And this society is probably more xenophobic than most of your standard D&D. It's very pretty much like all the races, the players' handbook just got together and we're just like, no, all those other books we're just gonna throw out the window. We're kicking them out of town. How about that?
And then you have to kind of have to go with the idea of like, well, why is it like this? Is it like this for a reason, or am I just kind of making a really weird artificial limit on what kind of classes they could have? And I mean, I feel like I had like at least a good justification. The world just ended.
Yeah.
We don't have time to be going, well, is this orc really bad? It's like, dude, I'm trying to make sure a demon doesn't come and fuck the tower down.
All hands on deck.
So what happened is in this campaign arc of this world storyline, is that a nuclear weapon went off, and it actually created an EMP, sort of say, with magic, and it created an anti-magic field around the world.
More or less.
More or less. And so we're basically just smack in the middle of it, and so maybe that's why everybody was so xenophobic.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of plays on the things like, there's two ways the apocalypse happens. Either everybody turns on everybody or everybody bands together. So this is like the only middle ground there's going to be. It's like a lot of people band to ground to hate on everybody else.
Yeah.
Speaking of racist towns that turned out not to be that bad, your mini 5th edition campaign.
Yeah. Basically, I had an idea for what it was going to be like, and it kind of... I didn't think it was going to work, so I kind of changed it at the last minute. But basically, it's a school setting, and we're all, like, prodigy, late teens kind of thing. And that was also kind of weird because some people are drow and some people are other ages. So, like, so teenage for them is, like, 30 years or something, wasn't it?
Oh, it's stupid.
Yeah,
It's
He's
stupid.
like...
You spend, you're probably, 75 by the time you get out of...
Whatever, Melee MacVeer,
Yeah, Melee
or
MacVeer.
Tinilith, whatever they're in at the
Yeah.
Oh,
moment.
no, the cleric one was, 100-something years, so I'd probably be, 130.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a school setting, and who wants a dragonborn around their kids?
Yeah,
You can breathe fire.
I really like that.
Yeah.
And shit.
Very, very brief tangent. It actually goes to something really good. The X-Men. I'll get back to D. Don't worry. The X-Men are always supposed to be an allegory for racism, and I've always found them to be the absolute worst, most offensive allegory for racism ever, because they go, "Oh, they're just misunderstood people, and you're judging them because they're mutants." Like, no, I'm judging that guy over there because he's a preteen that can't control his emotions. Also, when that happens, he causes fucking earthquakes.
Yeah,
It's okay to be a little judgy.
Yeah.
That's what I was picturing with the dragonborn.
Yeah,
at least.
it's like, oh,
the tiefling and drow are more taboo based, just because they have demon blood.
yeah. I could totally forgive a person for being a little hesitant around a kid that can cry and accidentally shoot lightning around.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just like, all right, Bobby, just don't hang out with Smith. Just gotta look at yourself.
Yeah, and
Is that
like,
racist?
yeah, you could still be a dragonborn, but you'd not go to school. You'd be like homeschooled.
So yeah, that'd be my thing. It's like, the idea of race is supposed to also kind of influence the character on how to play, like, him in the world. So how do you go about playing your race?
Well, many races are probably typically more good aligned or evil aligned, or law or chaos as well. So, to give a good example of that is dwarf, with very lawful, very structured society on how they do things.
And then on the opposite spectrum is an elf. I mean, just a forest elf, somebody who dances around in the forest. It's like just casting spells willy-nilly, playing with birds. And then it's like, well, how are these two people going to get along? Are they going to get along?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a Legolas and Gimli situation? Is it going to be like, I'm begrudgingly respectful of you? Or is it like, you fucking fairy, quit dancing in the forest and help me build this goddamn campfire?
Yeah, and with the Elan, this kind of it's kind of weird on where they come from.
Yeah,
Like, So I kind of just played him like without emotion because it's kind of like a human, but not.
Well, and there's a lot of different races in 3.5 in particular. When you start straying away from the player's handbook, it starts getting really kind of out there. I mean,
They
you
have
got
all-
your lizard folk, your cat folk, we starting to go into self-level adjustments here now. And most of the stuff out of the monster manual.
You start to get 3.5 really had a class bloat, and they had a class feature bloat. They had a spell bloat. They had a theme
Yeah.
bloat. They had a
Yeah.
race bloat.
Yeah.
To where like at some point it gets overwhelming, and then for some people like me that kind of gets like fun. It's almost like digging through your box of toys. Go, oh shit! There's this cool
Yep.
thing, and it can go well with this thing, and slamming it together. Whereas some person just goes, human fighter, fuck you.
Yeah. Human fighter.
Me. I don't got time to read that.
Got time for it.
I think all my classes in 3.5 have been human for the most part. Land wasn't that bad.
No, I don't think have you even played a human yet?
I don't think he's played
I
human.
don't think you've played a human. You played a whisper halfling.
Oh yeah, it was something different.
Yeah.
But you helped me with that.
And he played a
Almost.
satyr.
Then you're a satyr.
It was a satyr.
Then you're a insectile.
I guess so. Maybe
a
I haven't
insectile
played human
elf.
at all.
And
Yeah.
on the land.
But I will say I've had heavy help with the insect and the whisper.
It was like a whisper halfling. They
Yeah.
get
Or is it-
telepathy basically.
I thought it was Whisper
Yeah.
Gnome.
It might have been a whisper gnome.
Might have been
Yeah,
Whisper
ghost.
Gnome. I just remember he was small.
Yeah,
He was small.
he was a
Small.
small
He was a
warlock.
small one.
He's the small warlock.
But then, like, okay, so with all of this together, you now have like your race, you have your class, and you kind of have to like work together and see how all of these different personalities are bumping off each other. So I'm asking all you, what was your favorite party cohesion or party discohesion moment that you've played?
That is a good one. You know what? Why don't we save that for next time?
For next time?
Sounds good.